Okay, we're gonna read the next chapter that we are on for the fifth sacred thing. And I am using Veronica's space again. She's on a little staycation. That's what Bodhi and I used to call it. I mean, she's not at a hotel or anything, but she's taking some time to herself. Bodhi and I used to... Bodhi's my son. Passed away 4 years ago. We used to go on staycations. We would rent motels right near where we lived. And he loved the Embassy Suites where we lived because it was all-inclusive. Like, he could go down to the bar, order a soda to our room, just sit there, you know. And he was walking independently at this time. He had cerebral palsy. And there was a glass elevator he could go down. And I could always keep tabs on him, you know. It was like one of those hotels where, like, the balconies went all the way around. And so, like, even if I went out of my room, I could look down and see him. And he would love it. I'd be like, Bodhi, what's up? Anyway, so I'm using Veronica's space just to record this because my little gypsy wagon gets hard on my back after a while. Okay, so here we go. Now we're on chapter 10. On a hilltop reached by a spiral path, on an island in the middle of the lake, in the middle of a woods, 9 old women guard the city with their magic. Maya said, panting a bit as they climbed the hill. Sounds like a story, doesn't it? Why did they pick this place? Madrone asked. They wanted to be in the center of the city, but somehow removed from it. They wanted seclusion for listening and dreaming, but without isolation. You'd think they'd have also wanted a gondola or even an elevator, Madrone said. She was breathing heavily herself, and that worried her. Really, by now, she should be recovered enough to keep pace easily with Maya. Maybe she needed to start doing more regular exercise. Running, dancing, maybe. Bird trailed behind, trying to hide his struggle to keep up. Well, they're purists, Maya said, and it makes for a better story. Early one morning, up the hill, let's see what verb best describes it. Crept, climbed, staggered, 3 pilgrims. The lame, the halt, and the blind, Madrone completed the phrase. I'm not lame, Bird said. At the tension in his voice, the 2 women stopped and watched him come toward them. His face was grim, with suppressed pain. All right, Madrone said. You can be halt, whatever that is. Whatever it is, Maya said, it's a good idea. Let's rest a minute. They paused, looking down at the blue glint of water through the treetops. Bird caught up to them, and Madrone moved behind him to dig practiced fingers into the sore muscles at the small of his back where his uneven gait put stress on the spine. Ow, mierda, you're hurting me, he complained. Hush up, child. This is good for you. I'm fine, Madrone. Leave me alone. You're not fine, Bird. I'm a lot better than I was. You're worse, Madrone said. What did Sam say? Bird simply compressed his lips. Well? He wants to cut me up and put me back together again, his way. Break the bones in my leg and hip and reset them. Sam can be a bit overbearing, but he's very conservative about surgery. If he says you need it, you probably do, Madrone said. I'll think about it, he said, in a tone that indicated he wouldn't. Madrone exchanged a glance with Maya. Let me work on your hip, she said, patting his ass gently. Bend over, boy. Fuck you. He whirled on her. Such rage in his voice that she and Maya both stepped away. Madrone blinked back tears. Something was struggling to the surface of his memory. As hard as he struggled to push it back, there were the gray walls again and the steel bars. But he didn't want to remember the rest of it. Not here on this hill with Maya and Madrone both looking at him in that way. He was already sweating, and Madrone was about to cry. Shit, Carino, I'm sorry, he said, coming over and putting his arm around her. It was just those particular words. Another bad memory? Madrone murmured. He nodded. I'm sorry I kept you hurting, she whispered. No, I'm sorry I keep you hurting, she whispered. Not your fault, he said, kissing her eyes. And no, I don't need to talk about it. I really don't. Okay, Bird. He held her tightly for a moment. She was a shield against the pain that flooded him suddenly, not with memories, but physical sensation. He wanted to vomit, but he fought the urge. She could keep him shaking. Oh, she could feel him shaking. You're okay, she murmured. Estás bien. Estás aquí. Conmigo y con Maya. Estás seguro. She continued saying soothing things in Spanish until his breathing steadied. Spanish always comforted him. Maybe they'd do better if she stopped speaking English to him altogether. But her Spanish voice was only one of her voices, and anyway, she couldn't shelter him from the memories forever, only help to steady him through. It's hard to believe, Maya said, that this is the very place where I first met Rio. Look, see that spot on the bank over there, where the lawn comes down to the water? It was my first day in San Francisco, after I ran away from home at the beginning of what we called the Summer of Love, over 80 years ago. I hitchhiked up from LA and spent the night in some crash pad, overrun with roaches, and by that I mean bugs, she grimaced. Just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. First thing in the morning, I headed for the park, where the whole tribe of flower children were dancing and drumming and generating clouds of marijuana smoke on Hippie Hill. They intimidated me. I was afraid they'd find out I wasn't so cool as I looked. So I made my way to the edge of the lake, where I sat trying to convince myself that I was on a spiritual quest, not just scared and lonely. Rio showed up to me in a stolen boat and carried me off. Within 10 minutes, we were fucking, possibly under this very tree. He was a fast mover, old Tio Rio, Bird said, smiling. No, you stay down here. Skylar, come here now. Excuse me, Skylar. Skylar, get up here now. Come here. Come here. You are to stay down here. Do you hear me? I'm serious. Stay. I do not want you up there. Let me see here. Sorry about that. In those days, we got right down to business. When it was over, he looked at me and said, let's spend the rest of our lives together. What's your name? How romantic, Madrone said. Are you being sarcastic? Half and half. The odd thing was that we did, Maya said, spend the rest of our lives together. That is, except for a couple of decades here and there. Funny how long those years seemed then and how short they seem now. Are you rested? Because we still have quite a climb. At the top, the path broadened out into a small meadow. A clear pool stood on one side, and to the north, a series of low domes rose above the ground. They were shingled with wood, and the sun glinted on the glass skylights on their tops. Near the entrance of the largest dome was a small circular depression. lined with a bank of turf that curved around three sides like a green bench. A low stone table stood in the center. The door opened and a woman stepped out. Her face was as lined as Maya's. Her silver hair pulled neatly back into a knot at the nape of her neck. Her eyes narrow and curved as eucalyptus leaves. She wore a flowing silk tunic, peacock blue trimmed with lavender, over a pair of black sweatpants. Lily, Maya said. Lily Fong, how many years has it been? Not as long as that, Lily said, clasping Maya's hand. I saw you, Maya, just a month or two ago, on the day of the Reaper. That was a powerful story you told. Why didn't you come forward? Maya asked. You would have been honored if we'd known you were there. That's why I took care that you didn't know. It's dreary business being a living legend. Tell me about it, Maya said. Lily smiled. Why don't you come and join Defense Council, Maya? You qualify. I can't stand going to meetings anymore, Maya said. It destroys my concentration. But this is Madrone, whom you know, and my grandson, Bird. We've come to confer with the council. Sit down, Lily said, waving them over the sunken table. So you are Bird? Yes, we have been waiting for you. The council has sent me to talk with you. Can't we talk to the whole group at once? Maya asked. Lily shook her head. Today I am the ears and mouth of the 9. The others have their own work to do, and they too find that meetings disturb their concentration. Sit down. I will bring tea. She re-entered the dome and emerged a few moments later with a laden tray. They sat on the green bank around the stone table, and Lily handed them cups and served them tea from a porcelain pot carved with birds and leopards. This is beautiful, Maya said. It's a museum piece. Yes, the museum is kind to us with their treasures, and they enjoy being used. She turned to Bird. So you are the one who has returned from the Southlands, of whom the voices have spoken. What news do you bring us? Not good news, I'm afraid. Don't be afraid. Just take your time and tell the story. She listened attentively as he spoke, interrupting from time to time with questions. So that's where it stands, he said. As far as I know, the preparations for an invasion are well underway. You've answered a number of questions, Lily said, and raised others. The epidemics, for example. Apparently, down south, they're either still cooking the damn bugs up, or they've got so many running loose, it's hard to survive without antidotes. I suspect that last one was an attempt to weaken us, soften us up before they try to come in. But I don't know for sure. I know it's one way they control people in the Southlands. You work for the stewards, or you don't get access to the medicines or water. We've suspected an attack was brewing for some time, Lily said. We've dreamed it, but we don't know when it will come. I don't know either, Bird said. How much do they know about us? Bird stared for a moment at the embossed design on his cup, tracing the outline of the glazed leopard. It was beautiful and fierce and fragile, like a lot of things. They think the North is a hotbed of powerful witches. Each of us at Satan's beck and call. They're afraid of our magic, which is probably what's kept them away all this time. Aside from that, they don't seem to know much, from what I could tell, which, bear in mind, was sort of a limited perspective. If I can believe what I remember, I didn't tell them anything. But to be honest, Doña Lily, I don't know if I can believe what I remember, or if what I remember is all of what I did. And that troubles you greatly, she said. Of course. If you had told them the truth, if you had said to them, our city is defended by 9 old women who listen and dream, they would have believed you? Bird laughed. No. So don't torment yourself. Perhaps what you told them does not matter. You mean it was all for nothing? Bird said quietly. All that pain that I could just as well have cooperated for all the good it did? No, I didn't mean that. Resistance to violence is never useless. You did well, if only for the example you provided of choice. But not just for that. Certainly, information is important. Information is power. I just mean that no information is useful unless the mind is prepared to receive it. And now you understand our strategy. What do you mean? Lily was silent, and she poured out another round of tea. She looked at each of them closely, as if judging what she should say. Then she spoke. After the uprising, we found ourselves caught in a dilemma. We knew that war was responsible for shaping the world into all the forms we wanted to change. And yet, there we were, surrounded by hostile enemies who might, at any moment, attack and destroy us. This was the dilemma that every peaceful culture has faced for the last 5,000 years at least. And this was our own advantage, that we had history behind us. We had seen all possible solutions played out, from resistance to retreat to acquiescence, and we knew none of them worked. That saved us a great deal of time. We didn't have to waste our energies stockpiling weapons or drilling troops. We could just jump right to the heart of the matter, which was magic. In what sense? Madrone asked. Lily nodded at Maya. You remember that Dion Fortune quote you've always been so fond of? That magic is the art of changing consciousness at will? You can look at war as a massing of arms and materiel and troops, but you can also see it as something else, as a delicate web of interwoven choices made by human beings, made out of a certain consciousness. The decision to order an attack, the choice to obey or disobey an order, to fire or not to fire a weapon. Armies and, indeed, any culture that supports them must convince the people that all the decisions are made already, and they have no choice. But that is never true. So, mad as it may seem, this is the terrain upon which we base our defense of the city. The landscape of consciousness. I don't understand, Bird said. He set his cup down and looked at the woman, wondering suddenly if she were wise or simply crazy. Look at it this way. You went to the power plant, and I'm sure you used your magic to get in. Am I right? Spells of invisibility and protection, charms to neutralize the electronic security systems, rituals for power, and all so you could stand before the men who controlled it with guns and force them to take actions they didn't want to take. That about describes it, Bird said, and you probably thought you were great magicians. Not for long, but consider this. How much greater would have been the magic if those men you fought could have themselves chosen to close the plant? It would have taken more magic than I've got to have reached those particular men, Bird said. I don't know. Sure, we would have been better off. Maybe Cleese and Tom and Zora would still be alive. But I don't know whether manipulating their minds is really an ethical improvement over simple force. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm speaking about vision, expanding the parameters of possibility. I would have had to expand my own parameters pretty damn far to believe for a moment that the consciousness of those guys could change that much. Consciousness is the most stubborn substance in the cosmos and the most fluid. It can be rigid as concrete, and it can change in an instant. A song can change it, or a story, or a fragrance wafting by on the wind. You mean if I'd sung the right song to those guys or said the magic words, they would have changed just like that? Who is to say? I have heard that you are a fine musician. I was once, not anymore. Then you have denied the gift that perhaps was meant to be your true weapon. I'm sorry to hear that. I haven't denied it. It was taken from me. No, a gift like that can never be taken. It can be destroyed. No. If you think so, it is because you have not yet truly learned to use it. And when you do, who knows? It may prove to be a weapon more powerful than all the bombs and rifles. Doesn't sound very practical to me, Lily, Bird said. I'm sorry to say so, but I've seen it down there. You haven't. Bird, child, like your grandmother, we 9 are of another era. We have stood eye to gun barrel with greatest military machine the world has ever produced. The forces of the Stewards are nothing but the last vestiges of its power. We are not naive about armies and military power. On the contrary. But I ask you, what is practical? Would it have been practical for us to devote our scarce resources and human energies to building weapons and recruiting a standing army, when we needed every scrap of earth and drop of water and power of every human hand for survival, for healing the earth's wounds? War is the great waster, as much in the preparations for it as it is in the waging of it. We learned that, at least from the last century, as the same military drained the country and destroyed our true wealth. But we have nothing left to waste. We would have traded an uncertain future for sure misery, and still not have been able to withstand the armed might of the Stewards. And where does that leave us when armies come marching up the peninsula? Maya asked. It leaves us with what we have built of this city and this watershed, which in itself a possibility not counted on by those who would attack us. That is where our hope lies. We are what we wanted to become, Lily said. But can we preserve what we are? Maya asked. To wage war, one must believe in an enemy. If we refuse to be enemies, how can they fight us? Lily said. Easily, Bird said. They can walk right over us. I don't deny it's a gamble. None of us, even the strongest dreamers, knows what will happen. Only that there is hope, but no certainty. We must continue to listen, Lily said, and heal. You must heal, Bird. You've been to war. You've spilled blood, and you've suffered. You need cleansing. I'm sure I do. Do you have a power place you can go to? I did 10 years ago, Bird said. This time of year, you'd need skis to get anywhere near it. And I have to admit, I'm not quite up to skis. I'm glad you admit there's something you're not up to, Madrone murmured. Go somewhere, Lily said. Where I need to go, where I'm promised to go, is back to the south. Lily closed her eyes, listening deeply to her inner voice. Golden motes of dust swarmed in the late afternoon sun. Yes, you must go there. Yes, someone must go there, but not you. That road is not for you now. That remains to be seen, Bird said. It has been foreseen. They asked for a healer, Madrone said. Maybe we can find somebody from the Healers Council. There's a lot we'd like to know about their biotechnology. Ah, Madrone. Lily turned and gave her a searching look, then smiled. What do you dream these days? Madrone sat silent, reluctant to answer the question. In my dreams, I do what I should be doing, she said finally. I take care of people. And do they get any better in waking life? Apparently so. Cheater, Maya said. You're supposed to be resting. I can't control my dreams. The hell you can't. Leave the girl alone, Maya, Lily said. As Bird has said, these diseases are attacks. Well, how do you think we work? She's already a healer. Now she's becoming a dreamer. She shouldn't be working at all, Maya said. She should be regaining her health. But she is deeply entwined with the city's group soul. To regain her health, she must help us all regain our health. She needs to learn to take care of herself, Maya said. Would you please stop discussing me in the third person? Madrone interrupted. I'm right here, lucid and fully functional. Notice what you dream, Madrone, Lily said. The road to the south may be for you. The hell it will, Bird said. If you think I'm not strong enough to go, look at her. She can barely climb a hill without gasping. Madrone gave him what he called her fuck you look, but respect for Lily's present kept her silent. I'll end up going out of stubbornness, she thought, because I resent Bird's attempt to protect me, even though the thought of going terrifies me. I'll end up going to prove I'm not afraid when I am. But no, it's not even thinkable. I'm needed here. This should all be discussed in full council, Maya said, rising to her feet. Of course, Lily agreed. But we wanted to consult you first, Bird said. Naturally, Lily smiled. What else is Defense Council for? And if you're smart, you will have a private word with the Water Council first. Cress would be good. Don't tell him I suggested it. Thank you, Lily, Bird said. Please give our respects to the others of the 9. Given and received, Lily said. So that was that chapter. I liked it.